Welcome to the Special Forces in World War II podcast, transmitting on this frequency. This broadcast is your dedicated channel for comprehensive intelligence regarding World War II Special Forces operations. Our transmissions encompass in-depth analysis of their strategic maneuvers, cutting-edge equipment, illustrious biographies, and an array of pertinent subjects. The orchestration of these transmissions is executed by the expert team of the Special Forces in World War II website, a squad deeply immersed in the historical theatre. For further insights, visual aids, and captured moments frozen in time, navigate to our virtual headquarters at worldwar2-soft.com. Your immersion into the front lines of knowledge awaits. Over and out. Welcome back to another episode of the Special Forces in World War II podcast, where we explore the bold, the daring, and the extraordinary tactics that helped shape the outcome of the greatest conflict in modern history. I'm your host, Michael Wires, and as always, we're here to unravel the hidden stories behind the daring exploits of World War II. Today, we bring you a riveting account of Operation Fustian, a bold and complex Allied assault aimed at securing two critical bridges in the heart of Sicily during the summer of 1943. Assigned to No. 3 Commando and the 1st Parachute Brigade of the British 1st Airborne Division, Operation Fustian was part of the larger Allied invasion of Sicily, known as OperationHusky. Their mission? To land behind enemy lines and capture the Ponte dei Malati and Primosole Bridges, key crossings over the River Leonardo and the River Cimito. These bridges were vital to ensuring the swift advance of the 13th Corps toward Catania, while also preventing Axis forces from solidifying defensive lines along the rivers. The challenges were immense. No. 3 Commando prepared for a nighttime amphibious landing under fire, tasked with securing the Malati Bridge. Meanwhile, 1,856 paratroopers from the 1st Parachute Brigade took to the skies in a daring airborne assault to seize the Primosole Bridge. Gliders carried artillery pieces into battle, a military first, and pathfinders marked drop zones to guide the paratroopers. It was a mission of unprecedented complexity and peril, but the stakes were higher than anyone could imagine. Miscommunications, navigational errors, and fierce resistance turned this operation into one of the most intense and costly battles of the campaign. Join us as we recount the meticulous planning, the chaos of the landings, and the heroic efforts of the men who fought against overwhelming odds. From the beaches of Agnone to the skies over Sicily, we uncover the story of Operation Fustian, a tale of courage, sacrifice, and the relentless pursuit of victory. But let's start at the beginning. Operation Fustian is assigned to No. 3 Commando and the 1st Parachute Brigade of the 1st Airborne Division, both tasked with landing behind enemy lines that night to capture key bridges critical for the advance of the 13th Corps. No. 3 Commando plans to land from the sea near Agnone, advance inland, and secure the Ponte dei Malati Bridge over the River Leonardo. Simultaneously, 1,856 paratroopers from the 1st Parachute Brigade prepare to drop from the air to seize the Ponte dei Primosole Bridge, the only crossing over the River Cimito, located 8 kilometers to the north. Securing these two bridges ensures the route toward Catania remains open and prevents the Axis from establishing defensive lines along the rivers. In 1943, each commando comprises a small headquarters group, 5 fighting troops, a heavy weapons troop, and a signals platoon. The fighting troops include 65 men of all ranks, organized into 2 sections of 30 men each, further subdivided into 3 subsections of 10 men. The heavy weapons troop operates 3-inch mortars and Vickers machine guns, providing crucial support for the assault. The 1st Parachute Brigade, under Brigadier Gerald Lathbury, consists of the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Parachute Battalions, supported by the 16th Parachute Field Ambulance, the 1st Parachute Squadron of the Royal Engineers, and the 1st Air Landing Anti-Tank Battery of the Royal Artillery. This anti-tank battery is equipped with British 6-pounder guns, the brigade's sole anti-tank capability. The brigade's plan divides paratroopers across 4 drop zones, with gliders designated to land at 2 additional landing zones. The 1st Parachute Battalion is split into 2 groups. One lands at Drop Zone 1, north of the river, while the 2nd lands at Drop Zone 2 to the south. Both groups are tasked with converging on the bridge to launch a coordinated assault from both sides. The 2nd Parachute Battalion is assigned to Drop Zone 3, located south of the bridge between the Gornalunga Canal and the main highway. Their mission is to seize and fortify 3 small hills, codenamed Johnny Wee, Johnny II, and Johnny III. Intelligence suggests the hills are defended by an Italian platoon. Once secured, the battalion digs in to repel counterattacks from the south. The 3rd Parachute Battalion is tasked with landing at Drop Zone 4, about 900 meters north of the Primosole Bridge. Their objective is to secure the area and prevent counterattacks originating from Catania. A last-minute decision to include D Troop and an expanded battery headquarters of the 1st Air Landing Anti-Tank Battery is made possible by the cancellation of Operation Glutton. This adjustment allows more tug aircraft to deploy, bringing the total to 19 gliders, 11 airspeed horses, and 8 Waco CG-4As. These gliders are loaded with 12 anti-tank guns, jeeps, and vital equipment. Their designated landing zones are Landing Zone 7, north of the river, and Landing Zone 8, to the south. Each team of gunners undertakes rigorous preparation. Jeeps and guns are secured within the gliders, while crews rehearse the perilous unloading procedures. Their task is formidable. Land in enemy-held territory, unload under fire, and immediately engage in combat. To ensure accuracy, the 21st Independent Parachute Company is deployed as pathfinders, the first use of such units in British airborne operations. Equipped with Rebecca and Eureka beacons and special marker lights, they guide transport aircraft and gliders to the correct drop zones. This innovation is critical for the operation's success. The use of gliders to transport artillery into combat is unprecedented, marking the first time artillery pieces are flown directly into battle by any military force. Recognizing the likelihood of high casualties, each parachute battalion is supported by a section from the 16th Parachute Field Ambulance, including 1 doctor and 16 other ranks. The remainder of the Field Ambulance unit, including 2 surgical teams, establishes a main dressing station in farm buildings south of the Primosole Bridge. The airborne assault is supported by 105 Douglas C-47 Skytrains from the U.S. 51st Troop Carrier Wing, comprising contributions from the 60th, 62nd, and 64th Troop Carrier Groups. The Royal Air Force's No. 38 Wing provides 11 Armstrong Whitworth Albemarles for paratroop transport. Glider towing aircraft include 12 Albemarles and 7 Handley Page Halifaxes, which tow the 19 gliders loaded with personnel, equipment, and artillery. In the lead-up to Operation Fustian, the 1st Parachute Brigade prepares meticulously during the summer of 1943. Based in Sousse, Tunisia, their days are characterized by intense training, strategic planning, and unexpected challenges. On 1st July 1943, the brigade begins reconnaissance of training areas as company commanders receive briefings on the objectives of Operation Fustian. The following day, the intelligence officer visits Force 141 in Carthage to gather critical information. By day's end, Operational Order Husky number 14 inches and its administrative instructions are distributed, cementing the operations framework. The pace accelerates on 3rd July when 2 American officers deliver a lecture on escape techniques, offering vital survival insights to brigade personnel. On the 4th of July, the rear party arrives from Mascara under Captain Elliott's command, followed on the 5th of July by the road party under Captain Morton, bringing additional resources. A significant setback occurs on the 6th of July when a fire breaks out at the 1st Airborne Divisional Ammunition Dump. The entire dump is consumed in a massive explosion, causing substantial damage and chaos. Undeterred, the brigade presses forward. On 8th July, a divisional course on new communication codes ensures secure transmissions during the operation. The following day, General Montgomery addresses the brigade at noon, inspiring the troops for the challenges ahead. That evening, a signal exercise codenamed Preface tests communication systems and operational readiness across all levels of command. By the 9th of July, signal exercise Preface concludes, and the 1st Air Landing Brigade embarks on its journey to Sicily at 2000 hours. On 10th July, final briefings take place, with brigade signals receiving their directives and consolidated parachute drop instructions published. At 1930 hours, brigade headquarters holds a final meeting to ensure all preparations are complete. On the 10th of July, 1943, Operation Husky, the invasion of Sicily, begins. British and Canadian forces land on beaches south of Syracuse, near the Pacino Peninsula, while American troops land further southwest near Gela. This combined air and seaborne assault involves 180,000 Allied troops supported by 3,200 ships and 4,000 aircraft, marking the beginning of Italy's withdrawal from the war. General Montgomery's 8th Army carries out the beach landings with minimal resistance from Italian coastal defenders. By 8 a.m., the British 5th Infantry Division secures Cassabili and advances beyond Syracuse, with some troops entering the city while the main force moves north towards Augusta. On the 11th of July, the British encounter Group Schmalz, a battle group of the 15th Panzer Grenadier Division, fortified at Priolo with Tiger tanks and anti-tank guns, temporarily halting their advance. Meanwhile, the British 50th Northumbrian Division, under Major General Sidney C. Kirkman, lands at Avola and moves north toward Cassabile. Highlanders and Canadians of XXX Corps press inland, meeting light opposition. The Malati and Primosole bridges, crucial for the advance towards Catania, become focal points of the campaign. Montgomery arrives in Syracuse and establishes his tactical headquarters. He eagerly prepares for Operation Fustian, the capture of the Malati and Primosole bridges. Back in Sousse, Tunisia, on the 11th of July, the 1st Parachute Brigade undergoes a full inspection in G1098 equipment. Life belts are distributed, practice firing drills are conducted, and containers meticulously checked. By 2200 hours, personnel are ordered to rest, aware of the operation's imminence. On the 12th of July, the brigade's day begins with reveille, breakfast, and final Royal Air Force briefings. By mid-afternoon, they move to the airfield, only to learn of a 24-hour postponement. They return to camp, leaving equipment loaded on transport vehicles. On the 13th of July, the brigade receives confirmation that Operation Fustian will proceed that night. At 15:45 hours, the unit departs for the airfields. Intelligence reports indicate that the 50th Infantry Division will advance toward Catania, aiming to link up with airborne forces at first light. That same day, Lieutenant Colonel John Durnford Slater, commander of No. 3 Commando, is summoned to 13th Corps headquarters in Syracuse. There, he meets General Montgomery, Lieutenant General Miles Dempsey, and Admiral Roderick McGrigor. Despite concerns over the tight timeline for planning the Agnon landing, Durnford Slater is reassured by intelligence suggesting the Malati Bridge is lightly defended. Montgomery's optimism is unyielding as he remarks, "Everybody is on the move now. The enemy is nicely on the move. We want to keep him that way. You can help us do that. Good luck, Slater. At 21:30 on July 13th, 1943, landing ship infantry HMS Prince Albert, having earlier evaded an attack by an E-boat, begins lowering landing craft assault carrying No. 3 Commando. The scene is chaotic as the boats approach the Sicilian shore. To the north, Catania is under heavy Allied bombardment. To the west, tracer bullets and very lights streak the sky, while to the south, anti-aircraft fire and star shells light up the area around Syracuse. Overhead, the rumble of Dakotas and glider tugs en route to Primosole Bridge fills the night air. When the assault boats are approximately 180 meters from shore, German forces open fire. The commandos return fire as best they can, their aim hindered by the rocking crafts. The near collapse of the Napoli division the previous day has left the Axis line vulnerable to disintegration. In response, the Germans deploy reinforcements from the Panzer Division Hermann Göring and the 1st Fallschirmjäger Division to stabilize their front. Despite the initial resistance, the commandos swiftly neutralize 2 pillboxes on the beach. Major Peter Young rallies Troops 1 and 3 and pushes inland towards their objective, the Ponte dei Malati Bridge, located 8 kilometers away. The journey proves arduous. The commandos navigate dense cacti, shrubs, vineyards, and streams in the darkness. Progress becomes smoother once they locate the railway line leading to Agnone railway station, which they follow towards the bridge. Along the way, they encounter a group of British paratroopers who have landed far south of their intended drop zone. The commandos invite the paratroopers to join them, but the airborne troops choose to continue their own mission towards Primosole Bridge. By 3 a.m., Major Young and his troops reach the northeast end of the Malati Bridge, which spans 230 meters across the River Leonardo. Italian forces man the pillboxes defending the bridge, but the commandos neutralize them with grenades through the loopholes. The demolition charges placed on the bridge are removed, securing the structure from sabotage. The commandos establish defensive positions around the bridge, spreading out through orange groves and shallow ravines. The hard Sicilian ground resists digging, so they use rocks to create makeshift defenses. The second wave of commandos faces delays. The returning landing craft assaults lose their way back to HMS Prince Albert and are late in retrieving additional troops. As they approach the beach again, they come under fire, but HMS Tetcott provides support, laying down smoke shells to obscure the defenders' positions on the cliffs. By dawn, Lieutenant Colonel Durnford Slater has between 200 and 300 men at the bridge armed with light platoon weapons. With daylight comes a fierce German counterattack. A Tiger tank begins shelling the bridge, damaging the pillboxes and the thin cover used by the commandos. Casualties rise under relentless mortar and tank fire. The commandos' PIAT team manages to destroy a German ammunition truck, causing a spectacular explosion. But the situation remains dire. Reinforcements arrive for the Germans, including additional tanks, 3 battalions from a Panzer Grenadier regiment, and Italian infantry with light armor. By 5:20, Durnford Slater meets with Major Young and concedes that the situation is deteriorating. The 50th Infantry Division, expected to relieve the commandos, is nowhere in sight, and casualties are mounting. Captain Pooley leads Troops 5 and 6 in an attempt to flank the enemy, but intense fire forces them back. The Tiger tank, positioned among cypress trees on the far side of the bridge, remains the primary obstacle. It is effectively hull down and out of range of the PIATs. Any advance across the open ground towards it is suicidal. Outnumbered and with nearly a third of his force killed or wounded, Durnford Slater orders his men to break into small groups and retreat towards British lines. Most manage to withdraw, though a few isolated groups continue fighting, keeping the bridge under intermittent fire. Their actions delay the German advance and ensure the bridge remains intact. The Malati Bridge is held long enough for demolition charges to be removed and left intact for the eventual arrival of the 50th Infantry Division. By 1920, on July 13, 1943, the 1st Parachute Brigade begins its takeoff. The aircraft follow a flight path skirting the southeastern tip of Malta and along Sicily's eastern coast. Their carefully calculated route aims to position the first planes over the designated drop zones by 2220. As the planes approach Sicily, they remain 16 kilometers offshore until reaching the Simeto River, where they turn inland toward their drop zones. By 2130, the lead planes pass over Malta, where tension runs high. Flak from a convoy bound for Sicily briefly disrupts their journey. Despite this, the brigade maintains focus, ready for the critical operation ahead. However, the flight quickly turns chaotic. 33 planes stray off course and approach an Allied naval convoy, whose gunners, primed for an air raid, mistakenly open fire. Amid the confusion, 2 planes collide while evading the barrage and crash into the sea. Another 2 are shot down, and 9 more are damaged, forcing them to return to North Africa. A plane carrying No. 4th Section, 16th Parachute Field Ambulance, Royal Army Medical Corps, is misidentified as hostile and shot down. 4 personnel are reported missing, while survivors are rescued by a destroyer. Flak over the drop zones further scatters the units. Aircraft reaching the Sicilian coast face heavy Axis anti-aircraft fire, with 11 planes shot down and 10 more aborting their mission due to damage. Inexperienced pilots, rattled by the barrage, refuse to proceed further. Lieutenant Colonel Alistair Pearson of the 1st Parachute Battalion forces his aircraft's crew to continue when they begin circling aimlessly. Evasive maneuvers scatter the formations, leaving many paratroopers unable to jump or dropped far from their targets. Of the planes that proceed, only 39 managed to release their troops within 800 meters of the intended drop zones. At 22:14, the first troops descend under intense flak. The commanding officer of the 2nd Parachute Battalion lands with part of his headquarters on drop zone number 3. Elsewhere, paratroopers of the 3rd Battalion and Royal Engineers are dropped as far as 19 kilometers south of their objective. 4 planes drop troops on Mount Etna's slopes, 32 kilometers north. Captain Victor Dover of the 2nd Battalion is among those landing there. He and another soldier take a month to rejoin Allied lines, while others are captured. Less than 20% of the brigade lands in the correct locations, and 30% return to base. Only 12 officers and 283 other ranks participate in the subsequent battle. By 22:30, elements of the 1st Parachute Battalion join the growing airborne presence. Some paratroopers land in range of the 1st Fallschirmjäger Maschinengewehr Battalion. Initially mistaken for reinforcements, they are quickly fired upon. About 100 are captured on landing. Captain Kesey's No. 3rd Section of the 16th Parachute Field Ambulance lands 5 kilometers west of their objective under heavy fire, losing vital equipment. On that same evening of July 13th, 1943, as dusk falls over Tunisia, gliders take off in staggered groups from strips E and F, between 2145 and 2200. The last of the 11 airspeed Horsa gliders lift into the air. Horsa number 125 damages its tow rope during takeoff and is unable to continue. Simultaneously, Waco CG-4A gliders launch from Strip F. Losses occur during takeoff when 2 towing aircraft hauling Waco gliders nose, 115 and 118, crash. En route, one glider is prematurely released by its towing aircraft and crashes into the sea. The remaining gliders press on, their tug aircraft climbing to a cruising altitude of over 500 meters. As they approach Sicily, the tranquility of the Mediterranean night is shattered. searchlights sweep the sky. An anti-aircraft fire erupts, forcing the tug crews into evasive maneuvers. The carefully planned routes are disrupted as aircraft weave through the flak, causing many to lose their bearings. As the coastline comes into view, navigational confusion arises. Many crews mistake the River Leonardo for the Cimito, leading to widespread dispersion. From the ground, parachute troops observe gliders circling aimlessly. Some veer inland, while others head back out to sea. When release orders are finally issued, the gliders are scattered across an area 16 kilometers long and 10 kilometers wide. 2 hours after the initial parachute landings, the results are dismal. One glider pilot later comments that the lights from tracer fire and explosions are far brighter than any Pathfinder's landing markers. Of the surviving gliders, only 4, carrying 3 anti-tank guns, managed to land without significant damage. The remainder are destroyed, many falling victim to machine gun fire from the defending German Fallschirmjäger during their approach. Together with his Batman, Private Lake, Brigadier Gerald Lathbury, the brigade commander, moves towards the Primosole Bridge in the darkness, having been dropped 5 kilometers away. He jumps with his group at 23:30 from a height of about 60 meters, landing on soft plowed ground. The two men pause briefly to collect weapons from a supply container, where they meet other members of the brigade headquarters. Further along, they encounter Lieutenant Colonel Johnny Frost and 50 men from his 2nd Parachute Battalion, also advancing toward the objective. Lathbury divides his force into 4 sections as they approach the vicinity of the bridge. At 0100 hours, a headquarters party from the 3rd Parachute Battalion establishes contact with elements of the 1st Parachute Battalion and a small number of their own men. The 1st Parachute Battalion group sets off immediately, driven by the urgency of the mission. By 1:30 a.m., the 3rd Parachute Battalion party reaches the bridge area and reunites with the 1st Parachute Battalion. The bridge looms ahead as the units converge on their shared objective. At 2 a.m., 2nd Lieutenant Lazenby of the 1st Parachute Battalion dispatches a patrol of 7 men to reconnoiter the bridge, while the intelligence sergeant of the 3rd Parachute Battalion moves to establish contact with brigade headquarters. At 2:15, Captain Rann and 2nd Lieutenant Lazenby lead a small force, approximately 7% of the 1st Parachute Battalion, in an assault on the bridge. The bold attack succeeds, and they secure the structure. Meanwhile, a detachment from the 2nd Parachute Battalion moves toward their forming-up point, FUP. By 3:15 a.m., 1st Parachute Brigade headquarters reaches the southern end of the bridge, preparing for an assault. To their surprise, the bridge is already in British hands. However, Brigadier Lathbury is wounded by a grenade thrown by a stray Italian soldier. At 3:30 a.m., approximately 50 prisoners of war are rounded up near the bridge and confined to buildings north of the structure. Nearby, 3 sticks of A Company from the 2nd Parachute Battalion, joined by 12 men from B Company, form a single platoon of 45 men. They launch an attack on Objective J.1, securing it after a fierce exchange of grenades and small arms fire, and capture about 100 prisoners. By 0400 hours, the main party of the 2nd Parachute Battalion reaches the FUP, finding an unoccupied pillbox. The bridge is now fortified with 120 men from the 1st Parachute Battalion and 2 platoons from the 3rd Parachute Battalion. Force headquarters is established at the bridge, although wireless communication remains unavailable. At 0430, the 1st Parachute Battalion secures the Primosole Bridge, but elements of the 1st Fallschirmjäger Machine Gun Battalion hold entrenched positions to the south. Their available support includes 3 anti-tank guns, 2 3-inch mortars, and a single Vickers machine gun. Brigade headquarters and the main dressing station for the field ambulance are set up south of the bridge, where casualties begin to arrive for treatment. At the 2nd Parachute Battalion's drop zone, medics treat 29 wounded personnel, while 15 wounded at drop zone 1 of the 1st Parachute Battalion are reported. Around 0430, a patrol of 50 men from the 2nd Parachute Battalion reconnoiters Objective Johnny 1, linking up with the composite platoon already in position. Major Lonsdale assumes command of the combined force, solidifying their hold on the objective. By 5 a.m., the position is secure, and the 2nd Parachute Battalion establishes its headquarters, bringing their total force to 120 men. Lieutenant Colonel Frost positions his men on high ground overlooking the bridge, while Lathbury deploys another 40 men along both sides of the river. By 5:30 a.m., the situation at the bridge is dire but manageable. The defenders include 120 men from the 1st Parachute Battalion, supported by 2 3-inch mortars, a Vickers machine gun, and 3 PIATs. Wireless communication is limited to a single number, 22 radio set. The 3rd Parachute Battalion's 2 platoons lack support weapons or wireless capability, while the 2nd Parachute Battalion holds J.1 with 120 men, but also without support weapons or wireless communication. Captain Riddler of the 16th Parachute Field Ambulance leads his stick to a farm designated as the main dressing station. Overcoming resistance from a small group of Italian soldiers, he secures the site and begins preparations for incoming casualties. On the high ground southwest of the bridge, Lieutenant Colonel Wheatley of the 16th Parachute Field Ambulance encounters wounded men along the march. Unable to transport them further, his team provides aid before pressing on. By 5:45, Wheatley arrives at the bridge and cycles to the main dressing station to take command of medical efforts. At 6:15 a.m., 1st Parachute Brigade headquarters is established on the southern riverbank. By 6:30, defensive positions are reinforced with 6-pounder anti-tank guns brought in by glider, along with captured Axis anti-tank guns. Sergeant Anderson positions his gun to cover a critical road, while Lance Sergeant Atkinson and Sergeant Doig secure other key approaches. 2nd Lieutenant Clapham works tirelessly to assist with unloading and positioning the guns. In an innovative move, he commandeers 2 captured Axis anti-tank guns from nearby pillboxes, training glider pilots and parachute troops in their operation. With reinforcements from the gliders, the 1st Parachute Brigade now has 295 personnel at the bridge, poised for the battle ahead. While this unfolds, a counterattack develops at J1, supported by Italian machine guns and mortars. Communications within the brigade remain compromised. Beyond their position, approximately 140 men from the 2nd Parachute Battalion occupy 3 small hills and capture 500 Italian prisoners. Both battalions are reduced to little more than company strength. The 3rd Parachute Battalion suffers the heaviest losses during the scattered parachute drop, with only a small number of their men reaching the bridge. Lacking a cohesive command structure, these troops are attached to the 1st Parachute Battalion to assist in defending the bridge. To the north, the Italian 372nd Coastal Battalion and the 10th Arditi Regiment are alerted to the British landings. Many members of the 372nd Battalion desert their positions, while the Arditi launch several attacks on the British positions. However, lacking heavy weaponry, these assaults are easily repelled. The Germans set up barbed wire roadblocks at both ends of the bridge, but briefly opened them to allow a truck towing a field gun to pass, just as the British assault party charges in. During the ensuing firefight, Brigadier Lathbury is wounded by a grenade, sustaining several shrapnel injuries. When the sappers arrive, they find Brigadier Lathbury receiving treatment for his injuries. As the only sapper section to reach the bridge, they are ordered to remove the demolition charges immediately. The Italian pillboxes at either end of the bridge contain valuable weapons, including breeder heavy machine guns, which the paratroopers quickly turn against their former operators. To bolster the defense, the paratroopers also positioned two Italian 50mm guns and a German 75mm anti-tank gun from nearby emplacements. As dawn approaches, the battle at the Primosole Bridge intensifies. The British paratroopers, holding both ends of the bridge, fend off relentless German infantry attacks with rifles and Bren guns, despite being bombarded by artillery and mortars and strafed by Focke-Wulf 190 fighter bombers. The Germans launch repeated assaults to retake the bridge. Sergeant Anderson silences an enemy pillbox, allowing paratroopers to regroup on the southern side of the bridge. Meanwhile, Driver Reed, under constant fire, uses his jeep to ferry ammunition and evacuate wounded soldiers, ensuring the defense holds. Despite Hitler's decree banning further airborne assault landings, local German commanders disregard this order. The 4th Fallschirmjäger Regiment conducts a parachute drop near the Primosole Bridge, landing an hour before the British and working their way close to the bridge, using the reed-covered banks of the Simito River for concealment. On the 3 hills overlooking the southern approaches, Lieutenant Colonel Frost and approximately 140 men from the 2nd Parachute Battalion hold off increasing numbers of enemy forces retreating from the advancing 50th Infantry Division. By 7 a.m., the battle reaches new intensity. Colonel Wheatley establishes a main dressing station, setting up an operating theater as wounded paratroopers arrive. Italian soldiers near the bridge surrender, emerging from hidden positions waving white flags. On the bridge itself, Lathbury's men face mounting pressure from the north, forcing a precarious back-to-back defense. Lieutenant Peter Stainforth's unit acts as the brigade reserve on the south side, but cannot provide immediate support. An artillery officer with Frost establishes contact with the Royal Navy cruiser HMS Mauritius, part of Rear Admiral Cecil H.J. Harcourt's 15th Cruiser Squadron. Along with HMS Newfoundland and HMS Arethusa, naval fire support disrupts German attempts to regroup. Captain Veer Hodge of the Light Regiment Royal Artillery coordinates the naval bombardment, which devastates German positions. By 9 a.m., the situation at J1 deteriorates due to limited weaponry, while an enemy patrol approaches the bridge from Catania. Mortar fire repels the patrol at 09:15, but casualties at J1 mount as defenders struggle to establish effective positions. Brief communication with the 8th Army at 09:30 allows the success signal Marston 1 to be sent before wireless contact is lost. At 1600 hours, concentrated shelling forces Brigadier Lathbury to order a withdrawal of the remaining 1st and 3rd Parachute Battalions to the southern side of the river, abandoning the northern end of the bridge. Ammunition supplies dwindle, fires in surrounding fields worsen the situation, and captured enemy machine guns become critical to the defense. Lieutenant Colonel Pearson positions 200 men, including 2 platoons from the 3rd Parachute Battalion, to hold the approaches to the bridge. The Germans launch a series of attacks, and while the paratroopers are not immediately overrun, their ammunition runs dangerously low. By 18:30, Pearson reluctantly obeys an order from Lathbury to withdraw. Before leaving, he reconnoiters the riverbank with his provost sergeant, Panzer Manzer, and Batman Jock Clements. They find a ford 450 meters away, which they use to cross back to the battalion lines. Of the 295 British soldiers at the bridge, 115 are killed or wounded. The main dressing station of the 16th Parachute Field Ambulance cannot be relocated and remains in the contested area, continuing to treat casualties from both sides. An Italian officer arrives at the main dressing station, informing the medical personnel that they are now prisoners of war. However, since they are treating casualties from both sides, they are permitted to continue their work. Throughout the day, the medical team persists in their efforts, performing 21 surgical procedures by 2200 and caring for 62 British and 29 German or Italian patients. The retreat to the southern end of the Primosole Bridge temporarily creates a stronger defensive position with concentrated firepower. However, German forces soon position anti-tank guns near the northern end, systematically destroying the pillboxes one by one. As the guns fall silent and ammunition runs critically low, the British Vickers machine guns are down to their last belts of bullets. A final coordinated German assault comes from both sides of the river, using smoke from burning reeds as cover. The British paratroopers engage in hand-to-hand combat. With no reinforcements in sight, Brigadier Lathbury orders another withdrawal. The defenders gradually fall back in the fading light, regrouping with the 2nd Parachute Battalion on the hills. By 1915, with the situation untenable, Lathbury instructs the remaining defenders to withdraw southward in small groups. He remains unaware that the 2nd Parachute Battalion continues to hold out at Johnny 1. Major David Hunter, concerned about the possibility of a German flanking maneuver, directs Peter Stainforth and a Bren gunner to reinforce the right flank near a Vickers machine gun. By this time, the 1st Parachute Battalion, nearly out of ammunition, has fully withdrawn to the southern side of the bridge. The Germans, reinforced from Catania, launch a determined assault with overwhelming force. With no alternative, Lathbury abandons the bridge. The brigade major, crawling to the paratroopers' position, conveys an impression of disarray, leaving some to believe it is every man for himself. Lieutenant Colonel Alistair Pearson manages to return to the 2nd Parachute Battalion under Lieutenant Colonel John Frost. However, Peter Stainforth is forced to detour westward, evading the enemy by hiding in the scrub, ultimately taking him out of the fight. Relief finally arrives at 1945, as the first tanks of the 8th Army reach the 2nd Parachute Battalion's position, reporting that infantry reinforcements are advancing quickly. That night, Reverend Watkins leads a group of personnel southwards to escape from the main dressing station. Those who remain, doctors, medics, and patients, brace for capture. By 2200 hours, the surgical teams complete 21 operations, and the exhausted staff rest as much as possible. By 2400 hours, reinforcements arrive in force. 2 battalions of the Durham Light Infantry secure the bridge area, relieving the beleaguered airborne troops. The battle shifts to consolidation as the British prepare for the next phase of their campaign. The morning at the main dressing station brings an unexpected reprieve. Italian forces briefly occupy the station, but allow it to continue operating. Their occupation is short-lived as the 50th Northumbrian Infantry Division's forward elements secure the farm. By July 15, 1943, the main dressing station has treated 71 British and 38 enemy casualties. At 17:30, the site is cleared, and the remaining personnel regroup with the brigade. Captain Wright oversees the evacuation, using carts and a salvaged lorry to transport the wounded to safety. In the following days, salvage parties recover parachutes and containers from the drop zones, though much of the medical equipment is lost to looting. After the start of Operation Husky, on July 10, 1943, the York and Lancaster Regiment, leading the 50th Northumbrian Infantry Division, advances slowly north along the road from Lentini. The 4th Armoured Brigade also moves forward from Augusta. Both units face strong resistance from Group Schmalz, comprising the 115th Panzergrenadier Regiment, the 3rd and 4th Fallschirmjäger Regiments, and 3 fortress battalions. The day before, the leading battalions of the 69th Infantry Brigade reach Sortino but are exhausted. Just after dawn, Major General Sidney Kirkman arrives to meet Brigadier Edward Cook Collis, urging him to press onward toward Lentini without resting. Kirkman emphasizes the importance of maintaining momentum, warning that delays could give the enemy time to reorganize and mount stronger resistance. On July 13, 1943, Kirkman is summoned to General Montgomery's 8th Army headquarters. Montgomery briefs him on the dual missions involving No. 3rd Commando and the 1st Parachute Brigade, stressing the need to capture and secure the Primosole and Malati Bridges intact. Montgomery orders the 50th Infantry Division to spearhead the 8th Army's advance and relieve the airborne troops. To achieve this, the 4th Armored Brigade is placed under Kirkman's command. Montgomery outlines a tight timeline. The 69th Infantry Brigade must relieve the paratroopers at the Primosole Bridge by the morning of July 14, 1943. This requires the brigade to advance from Sortino to Lentini via Carlentini on a narrow single-track road before reaching Malati Bridge to relieve No. 3rd Commando. The division must then push to Primosole Bridge. Meanwhile, the 5th Infantry Division advances along the coastal road, with both routes converging on Carlentini. The plan demands an advance of 40 kilometers within 24 hours. The 50th Infantry Division, however, is already exhausted after 3 days of continuous combat since their landing. Temperatures reach 38 degrees Celsius daily, and many soldiers suffer from heat exhaustion and fatigue. Montgomery's invasion planning underestimated the resistance posed by German and Italian forces and overestimated the mobility of the 50th Infantry Division, which lacks sufficient mechanical transport. Consequently, much of the advance must be made on foot. On the afternoon and evening of the 13th of July, the 69th Infantry Brigade pushes forward. Kirkman and Cook-Collis remain close to their lead battalions, but progress is slow. The strong defensive positions in front of Carlentini require a full-scale assault to clear the path to Lentini, further delaying the advance. At the 13th Corps headquarters, Lieutenant General Miles Dempsey expresses concern over the delay, but it is too late to postpone the airborne operation again. The commandos are already en route by sea. The 69th Infantry Brigade has no choice but to press on, as further delays would allow the enemy to destroy the bridges. Despite their fatigue, Brigadier Cook-Collis's battalions continue advancing. Heavy artillery barrages rain down on Carlentini that night, coinciding with the 1st Airborne Brigade's departure from Tunisia. By 8:30 the next morning, the 7th Battalion, Green Howards, launches an assault on Monte Pancoli. Under intense bombardment from divisional artillery, heavy mortars, and Vickers machine guns, the hill eventually falls, and the advance into Carlentini resumes. The Green Howards press onto Lentini, where the enemy is unable to use high ground to their advantage. British artillery and tanks pave the way, and with the fall of Lentini, the 5th Battalion, East Yorkshire Regiment, leads the advance toward the River Leonardo and the Malati Bridge. They are relieved to find the bridge intact and capture it after a brief firefight as daylight fades. The advance is then taken up by the 151st Infantry Brigade, led by the 9th Durham Light Infantry and supported by tanks from the 4th Armored Brigade. They move toward the Primosole Bridge, where the fighting is fierce and desperate, as the paratroopers and commandos await relief under relentless enemy pressure. As twilight falls on the 14th of July, 1943, Bren gun carriers from the 9th Battalion, Durham Light Infantry, supported by tanks from the 4th Armored Brigade, appear below the positions held by the remnants of the 1st Parachute Brigade. Their arrival halts the Germans' attempts to advance further or lay demolition charges on the Primosole Bridge. The carriers are soon joined by the remaining 2 battalions of the Durham Light Infantry, led by Brigadier R. H. Senior. He establishes a strong defensive perimeter at the southern end of the bridge. While his troops are too exhausted to mount a major assault that night, preparations begin for a coordinated attack at 7:30 the following morning. That night, a company of the 8th Battalion, Durham Light Infantry, clears the southern end of the bridge. They dig slit trenches and hold their positions under constant mortar and machine gun fire. At dawn, Royal Engineers move forward to clear mines in preparation for the attack. On the opposite bank, German forces from the 1st Fallschirmjäger Division fortify their positions. These include machine gun and engineer battalions from General Richard Heydrich's division, a battery of paratrooper artillery, two 88mm flak guns in a ground roll, and remnants of two Italian battalions. Further north, near Catania, Group Schmalz regroups, while the largely intact 4th Fallschirmjäger Regiment prepares to move south. On July 15, 1943, the 9th Battalion, Durham Light Infantry, leads the British assault, wading across the Simeto River under artillery and tank fire support. The plan, lacking subtlety, demands immense bravery as the troops are fully exposed while crossing. The supporting barrage lifts too early, leaving the German defenders entrenched on the far side, ready to repel the attack. Some platoons manage to reach the German positions despite intense enemy fire. Hand-to-hand combat ensues, but the small numbers of British soldiers who cross are unable to secure a foothold and are forced to withdraw. The London Times reports on the battle, describing the German defenders as troops of the highest quality, experienced veterans of Crete and Russia, cool and skilled. Lieutenant Colonel Alistair Pearson observes the assault and criticizes the British tactics despite acknowledging the Germans' formidable skill. He is summoned to Durham Brigade headquarters to discuss the next steps. When the brigade commander proposes another assault that afternoon, Pearson bluntly remarks, if they want to lose another battalion, they're going the right way about it. After a tense silence, Brigadier Lathbury intervenes, persuading the officers to adopt Pearson's alternative plan, sending 2 companies from the 8th Battalion, Durham Light Infantry, across the river upstream to flank the German positions. Shortly after 2 a.m. on July 16, 1943, Lathbury leads the flanking force across the Simeto River at a ford approximately 27 meters wide and 1.2 meters deep. Once across, they turn east and advance towards the bridge. A very light flare signals the main force to storm the bridge. The flanking force surprises the Germans, pushing through their defenses using grenades and bayonets. The surviving German paratroopers retreat into the vineyards and olive groves along the Catania road. By dawn, the remaining 2 companies of the 8th Battalion, Durham Light Infantry, cross the bridge with tank support. They advance eagerly, but come under heavy fire from all directions and are forced to halt 270 meters beyond the northern end of the Primosole Bridge. The divisional history notes that lively fire was exchanged on both sides at ranges decreasing to 18 meters. The main obstacle is the presence of 2 well-placed 88mm guns that destroy 4 Sherman tanks, stalling the advance. Without armored support, the infantry is unable to progress further. Brigadier Senior crosses the river to assess the situation firsthand, but finds himself pinned down. General Kirkman arrives at the scene and communicates with Senior via radio due to worsening conditions. Realizing the attack is faltering and the tenuous foothold at risk, Kirkman informs General Headquarters that the division cannot support an amphibious operation to capture Catania. Montgomery agrees to postpone the amphibious landings by 24 hours. He visits the front with Dempsey to reassess the situation. Upon arriving at the 50th Division headquarters, Montgomery orders another attempt to secure the northern bank of the Simeto River that night. At 1 o'clock on July 17, 1943, the 6th and 9th Battalions, Durham Light Infantry, cross the river at the Pearson Ford, left of the Primosole Bridge. This time, the assault involves 2 full battalions. They successfully push through German defenses on the Catania Road, held by paratroopers and detachments from the Hermann Göring Division. The British troops dig in just in time to repel counterattacks by German paratroopers and tanks. Additional British tanks cross the river, expanding the bridgehead and prompting isolated enemy troops to surrender. The assault costs the 6th and 9th Battalions dearly, with 220 men killed or wounded, but it secures a critical position on the road to Catania. With new intelligence in hand, Montgomery reassesses the situation. Between the river Simeto and the city of Catania lies a narrow coastal plain, heavily defended by determined German forces. Reinforcements, including the 15th Panzergrenadier Regiment from the 29th Panzergrenadier Division, arrive as recently as 16th July 1943, significantly bolstering the enemy's strength. Montgomery recognizes that the 50th Infantry Division faces substantial challenges in breaking out from the Cimito bridgehead to link up with seaborne landings further north. As a result, the planned amphibious operation is cancelled, and Montgomery begins devising a new approach to advance toward Catania. Despite maintaining a positive demeanor to sustain morale, Montgomery's gamble for a rapid capture of Catania has failed. The swift victory he envisioned gives way to the reality of prolonged and intense fighting ahead. Of the 292 officers and soldiers from the 1st Parachute Brigade who reached the Primosole Bridge, 27 are killed and 78 wounded, with many others reported missing. Approximately 400 additional paratroopers who failed to reach the bridge are killed, injured, or captured during the chaotic landings. Number 3 Commando also suffers heavy losses, over 150 officers and men killed, wounded, or missing while fighting for the Malati Bridge. This concludes this episode. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Operation Fustian, a mission that tested the mettle of Britain's elite forces and highlighted both the triumphs and tribulations of airborne warfare. From the chaos of scattered landings to the fierce battles at the Primosole and Malati Bridges, we've seen how courage and determination often came at a heavy cost. As we reflect on their sacrifices, we remember the lessons of their struggles and successes, lessons that continue to shape military operations to this day. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing and leaving a review. Your support helps us continue to bring you more stories of courage, daring, and the unsung heroes of the Special Forces of World War II. Be sure to tune in next time as we dive into yet another remarkable operation that helped shape the outcome of the war. Until then, keep your wits sharp, your courage steady, and remember, sometimes the most incredible victories come from the unlikeliest of places. This is Michael Wires, signing off from the Special Forces in World War II podcast. See you in the next episode. And that concludes this mission briefing, fellow warriors of knowledge. We've navigated through the trenches of information, delving deep into the battlefields of history. As we wrap up this episode in our campaign for understanding, remember that knowledge is your most potent weapon. Stay vigilant and keep sharpening your intellectual arsenal. We'll rendezvous again for another episode, continuing our relentless pursuit of enlightenment. Until then, keep your mind sharp, your curiosity burning, and your determination unwavering. Simultaneously, you are hereby alerted to our outposts on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, fortifying our information dissemination. Should you possess any pertinent intelligence to bolster our mission, transmit your findings with no hesitation. Your contributions shall be prominently acknowledged within the operational archives. Furthermore, for those prepared to provide substantial reinforcement, navigate to our Patreon forward base and enlist. Your support is integral to sustaining our forward thrust. Carry forth the legacy. Dismissed.